Well, hello everybody, and welcome to EVCA's Talk at 5 o'clock. And it's my pleasure today to have a very special guest, Jeff Cree. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And Jeff and I shared a similar background in M&A space. So he's a head of the business and capital development, CEO, and forward thinker and AI enthusiast. So Jeff, tell us a little bit what brought you into the AI space and how did you end up here?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So, my private equity company, Atlantic Gulfstream Partners, is a compressed thesis roll up of MEP firms. And we have to put together six, seven businesses at once and acquire them in a single pro forma. So, that requires a lot of deep diligence and a lot of time to go through all those businesses and make sure that quality of earnings and valuations are right. And it's just a lot to do in a compressed timeline. So, I started thinking about ways that we could, leverage AI to help us get past that hurdle and become more efficient. Because, we have to look at, I don't know, a ton. I mean, how many companies did you look at before you pulled the trigger on?
That's true. And for those who are not in a know what the quality of earning is all about, what it means, it's a lot of time and money, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, matter of fact, one of the biggest things is to hit you heavy on the expense side. So it's not just about the efficiency and getting it done quicker, but it's also about getting things done faster with AI. So that's kind of where we started, and I was so lucky enough to have a guy that I actually had under LOI in Orlando a couple years ago, and we became really good friends during that process. And he had what we call a mad scientist working for him, and that was a content engineer back 3 4 years ago. So he's been doing AI for 10 15 years. And man, I got to sit down with this guy, and I was like, whoa, we got something here. And obviously Roger, who's my business partner in this trade gauge AI endeavor, he saw the vision as well. So we put Kyle in the position of chief artificial intelligence officer, and gave him some capital and said, go do your thing and make us more efficient and quality of earnings and valuations, and give us this beautiful business intelligence dashboard to have, the most cutting edge financial insights that we can have. Like, you hire like the best CFO there is, right? And he said, okay. And, a couple of months later, he's ranked number 10 in the world in AI agent creation. And he built this amazing product that's really allowing us to do some amazing things. Just to kind of give you an idea, we've gotten to a point to where we can provide a valuation, a quality of earnings report, and a term sheet in 7 days flat.
My God. Again, tell a little more about. I mean, I came from M&A space, and I totally understand the tremendous value proposition here. Not everybody probably understand just the scalability of the pre-AI M&A space and what it really take to present these type of document or produce, and how much level of effort is required, how much it really costs, and what does the business do now pre-AI, or we're doing it a couple of years ago
Yeah,
pre-AI.
sure. Yeah. I'll give a shout out to a few firms here because I think it's important. They gave us a really good deal. Well, we used CLA for our quality of earnings in the most recent transaction we did. And that was a tough one. You and I talked about this, a few weeks ago, but we put together 17 million EBITDA in Orlando a few years ago. We was so excited. We had them all under LOI at 3x. The projected valuation was trading somewhere around 11 to 12x from our suitors. And so we were super excited. Obviously, that's a ton of arbitrage there. Nice little, quick turnaround. And unfortunately, $150,000 later, we got knocked down to 7 million EBITDA. So CLA was able to take 10 million in EBITDA off of it by performing a quality of earnings review. And that really opened up my eyes because I've never been in the situation. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus or mention any names, but we did have a CFO that obviously, that didn't do as deep a dive as he needed to. But, it's when you go through something like that and you experience that kind of pain, that's when real change happens. And you understand that, hey, we got to do something differently. And, and we did. I took that experience and I just was relentless in the fact that, hey, this is the only thing. We did everything right. We got all the LOIs done. We got the capital secured, and now we got through this, probability of future cash flows problem that we need to solve. So that was what I just kind of redirected all of our resources to that because I knew without that we couldn't keep spending, $150,000 every time we wanted to do this and just, oops, sorry, that didn't work. Right, that gets very costly very quick. Not only that, I mean, with your purchase agreements and all the everything else, we used HK. I mean, those are very expensive service offerings, and to be able to eliminate a lot of that cost, but still get that level of diligence is was very much a value prop in my mind. And the more people I talked to agreed, and Justin Ishva, Shore Capital, has a couple of videos online and talks a lot about, hey, there's only two business models that work long term. You're either low cost or differentiated, and our platform is both of those. So, to give you an idea, as you know, and your viewers might not, a quality of earnings typically ranges anywhere from 30 to 70,000, depending on the complexity of the business. So, and it takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So it's a very thorough process. It's 100 something pages. SMB maybe it's down to 80, something like that. But yeah, we've managed to take that 6 week timeline and condense it down to 6 hours, and take that 30,000 price tag and condense that down to 1999, 1,999. It's an incredible differentiator in the space, and we do it not only for the private equity, the tier one hedge funds, private equity, but one thing that I'm very proud of is that we have an SMB product as well for the lower market. And the reason why we did that is because from my perspective and the way I think about it, generally speaking, as Q of E's are normally reserved for deals that are like 10 million EBITDA, and that kind of thing. So, I started thinking with the cost effect, we're bringing the cost way down. We're bringing the speed way down. I started thinking about a guy that's going to go and acquire a business, drain his 401k more than likely, get an SBA 7 loan, and essentially throw his whole life behind that business. And I'm going to argue with you that that individual needs a deeper diligence dive than $1 billion fund. I mean, their whole
Absolutely.
life's on the line, and
Yeah.
they don't get that level of diligence. They probably don't even know what a Q of E is. So we're bringing that deep level of diligence to the SMB space, and then along with, of course, offering that to the institutional tier one people as well. But we see a massive opportunity there. There's 50,000 lower market deals that close annually. So there's a huge opportunity there. And then on the institutional side, there's 1.7 trillion spent on deals that don't close.
And that's where see the solution like this and can serve as almost like an insurance policy from the bad deal. You don't have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to validate the deal if it's even worse investment because the offer or the teaser pitch deck can only tell you a 1% of the story. You really need to have a deeper dive into understanding the financial, understanding the alignment, if it's in a merger, an acquisition, or just a whole entire investment. You really need to make sure that your business is healthy and stable. And the due diligence it really takes to give you this assurance, it comes with a very, very heavy price tag and eats up the time and resources and money. And when a large deal, right, again, gets observed in a smaller deal. But again, to your point, there's so many micro transactions happening, and that cost become a substantial aspect that funds can be used to grow and scale the business. Or, insurance policy to walk away before it's too late.
Correct. Yeah, and we talked about this too. It's like, getting to a no quickly is almost as good as getting to a yes because you're not. You're not wasting time and resources on something that's not going to close. And that was my biggest thing. And one thing we hadn't discussed yet is we thought it was real important to have APIs. So we right now we have a working API to QuickBooks, which is really awesome for our SMB founders. Instead of saying, sending out a needs list, you saying, the typical drill, right? 3 years tax returns, 3 years P&L, balance sheet, bank statements. We just say, hey, look, here's the login to TradeGauge AI. Just create an account and log in, and you're done. Now, that's assuming that the QuickBooks is reconciled and everything is in line. But if it is, then that process becomes very efficient and less painstaking for the founder, because we're able to pull out that data, and now we have all these beautiful tiles that display all the KPIs of the business that we're concerned about. We can do our valuations and our quality of earnings in there within just a few days. So from the time that I want to do an IOI and then I'm going to move to an LOI, I can understand if I'm going to take that next step within a couple of days, maybe less than that, which is unbelievable because in the way that we did it in my previous role as a VP of private equity, doing MEP roll ups, is it's a very slow process. You go find the company, you go out to dinner a few times, you meet the wife. Yeah, it's very archaic. Whereas now, we just get straight to the hey, look, is this something that we want to do or not? And that's from our perspective. But from a founder's perspective, having been on TradeGauge AI before you get into that process, right, really prepares you to be, in a great place negotiating wise. If you fully understand what your value is, you've gone through and made the recommendations that we, put forth in the Q of E. You have that, you know exactly what they're looking for, and you're prepared. You are going to make more money off the exit of your business than somebody that's not prepared, and that's a fact. Whenever, I mean, I can tell you firsthand from being on the other end of this thing that if we had somebody that didn't have all their ad backs in, or their job cost details were off, and we couldn't really figure margins right, we heavily discounted that offer just because there was risk there and not knowing stuff. And then it's like, if that's not organized, what else is not organized, right? So then you start going down that road. So it's not only beneficial for investors, but it's also beneficial for founders, especially the ones that are nearing exit. But even the ones that aren't nearing exit, we bring their financials into an AI environment and almost act as the AI agents act as like a business coach to suggest things and provide predictive analytics, performance benchmarking. Let's just say you have a competitor, 10 miles down the road that's, spending way more on marketing than you are and their revenue is way up. Well, maybe that tells you you need to spend more on marketing, right? Or, you can see the margins, your margins are, the delta is pretty substantial there, right? So maybe it's time to increase prices. It gives you insights as to what your competitors are doing so you can kind of keep up with the trends. And then, of course, gives you a valuation of your business. Private equity knocks on your door, you get a strategic buyer. A lot of the times these people have zero clue what their business is worth. They might talk to, Frank down the street, right? Who says, man, my buddy just sold for 100 million, something like that. But, to get a realistic idea, having a platform that's extremely affordable and TradeGauge AI to give you those insights is huge. I mean, like if you go and talk to an acquisition target and they basically have already performed a QOV on themselves, they have a valuation right there in front of them, and they have all their books super clean. Their P&Ls are real clean. Everything's been accounted for. All the ad backs are in place already. I mean, you're going to be impressed, I would think. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I absolutely agree with you because most of the founders who are thinking about selling, right, some not maybe in a year, down sometime down the road, they're not equipped with the quality of earnings, understanding how the evaluation of the company is done, and what actually they need to focus on in order to get the biggest bang for the buck, right? And it's normal; they don't have to, right, educate themselves. And a lot of have the unrealistic expectations, whether it's too high or too low, or come in a disadvantage in a negotiation table without knowing what to talk about, right? Or what terms are thrown at the table, what the investors are looking at, and feel quite honestly cheated sometimes. They don't
yeah,
get the best out of it. And when they come with everything prepared, so it's even if the founders or the company owners don't ready to sell or thinking the retirement plan down the road, helping this having this up the application tool to educate themselves, assess where they stand, to have a kind of a leveled up conversation with the potential buyers and investors, and put a realistic expectation so they have something to stand on and defend their position on terms of the pricing, the positioning, the market, and things that they have not really thought about, right?
Mhm. Oh, 100%. And it gives them access to, like we talked about, having this, tier one level diligence done into where if your audience isn't at tier one, it's just like, Blackstone, BlackRock, these larger institutional firms, have access to, all kinds of different, due diligence and, these very, millions of dollars they've spent on these proprietary systems. And so we're bringing that Wall Street diligence down to Main Street to give people, a better shot at grabbing, exiting strong, and also being able to identify revenue trends and put themselves in a position to have that year over year growth that you know we're going to need to sell at a higher valuation, right? So I mean that's one of the bigger things that we look at is is the business growing, is it staying flat, no, what's going on? So being able to take those actionable insights from the product and implement them into the workflows of the business, I think is huge. And not only that, I mean if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right?
True.
So we're measuring all these different beautiful, KPIs against all these metrics that you can drill into. And there's an app that's about to come out that's on your phone. So essentially, a founder can be, or an M&A guy or girl, a lady, can be at dinner or whatever, and just pick up their phone and get on their app and see exactly what they need to know about the business, which is pretty awesome. And so we're working
Especially,
on,
yeah.
yeah, we're working on an API right now with NetSuite, so we can handle the larger operations, and then of course, in Investran and Dynamo and those kinds of things to for our institutional.
Awesome. Have you looked into integration with Uninet as well, by any chance?
No, I have not, but that seems like something we need to put on our roadmap, I guess.
Probably so. I mean, being in a government contracting space here in Washington D.C. area, there are a lot of M&A in different size and shapes happening consistently. People sell entire businesses. Some of them are 20 years tied to one agency because of loyalty. The veteran-owned businesses, and that industry is consistently shifting and moving and selling. Again, the owners, most of them are very experienced in M&A, in government contracting space, and some of them done very well for themselves. But again, valuation of the company, the good thing, their books is pretty audited for sure.
Yeah, I'll say.
And Uninet is one of the platforms that are using, instead of, QuickBooks, shifting into a much more structured and appraising platform for financial management, especially in the government space. So made worse to look into the integration with them. So it's exciting. I love that. So let me shift the gears a little bit. Take you back couple of years pre-AI space. What was your first interaction with AI technology when it first became public? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I feel like I was a dinosaur adopting AI because I worked at Noble Capital in Austin as a VP over there. Man, nobody wanted to mess with AI. AI back then was, it's like, oh, geez, this guy's using AI. It was like almost like a taboo subject, right? So it was like, and I didn't really know about it. And we hired this guy from Goldman Sachs that came in, and I saw him using it, and I go, what the heck is that? And he goes, that's Chat GPT. And this is back when the first one was out, right? You know, uh, and I was like, wow, that is really neat. And he was like, yeah, just ask it anything. And then, one of the partners in the firm who I just actually got back from. Yeah, he has a deal makers event where he has 100 investors in there. Anyway, it's a great event here in Austin. So if any of your viewers or have a deal they want to pitch, look up deal makers in Austin. You can get up there and pitch it to 100 accredited investors. It's a great deal. But anyway, so he comes in. He goes, "Yeah, I know about this Chat GPT. Watch this." He goes in there and says, "Pitch me a real estate investment like you're a gangster and from Brooklyn." And it was like, yo, man. So that was kind of my first. introduction into AI. It was more of kind of just playing around with it and using it to just seeing what the capabilities were and how it could do these crazy things. And then we started, and then it moved into like pitch decks, right? So every quarter we had to get up and give a presentation about where we were, where we are, and where we're headed. And then we started, you know, they started giving us a little bit more freedom to use, like Gamma and things like that, and that really accelerated things. So I think for sure in the PowerPoint space, that was probably my first real, wow, this is awesome, right? And then of course it's really helpful for processes and things like that to give you a good start. But then you start realizing once you start diving deeper and peeling back the onion, the hallucination factor and the loops and the hallucinations and the hyperplanes and how all that stuff works. And there's just a when you really start to fundamentally understand how you're receiving those outputs, you can work with the ways that can make you a lot more efficient, and you can get a better output out of it, if that makes sense at all. Just because there's about 20% or so hallucination, and if you're continuing to try and get an output it's always going to have some level of hallucination. So if you can craft that to where you can limit that, like for example, if you asked it a question about something, it might pull the data from like a really trusted source, and it might pull it from like Reddit, and then it'll conflate those things. So that's what we call kind of a hallucination. So you've got some real data mixed in with some data that's not verified, and kind of like it's on the internet, so it must be true, right? We all know that's not. So just reducing that hallucination and just being able to pinpoint that the data that you're trying to extract, and then using that data, filtering that data, the hallucinations out. I mean that when you start getting into that, then it starts getting a little bit more technical. But I think I would be interested to hear your experiences. But I think even if you didn't understand how that output was getting to your machine, I think just by human nature, you can say, well, that's not what I wanted to get out of it, right? So you just keep telling it and telling it and telling it till eventually you get something that is resembles what you were trying to make out of it. A lot like kind of the AI photo generation, right? Where you can say, make me um, a girl riding a unicorn with eating a an ice cream cone or something. You know what you want, but a lot of the times it won't get you back the what you actually want. But yeah, just having those knowing how to do those inputs and work with it, I think is probably kind of how I went from just using it to just laugh a little bit to actually using it in business to move things forward quicker.
Love what you said because leaning into it, right, instead of shy away and push back, that gets you better. And to demystify how AI function, it's still a technology. It's not, doesn't have its own consciousness, at least not yet. And it doesn't know everything. It can get you any kind of informations million times faster. You can access to knowledge for, within a blink of an eye. However, you have to understand the proper way of asking it, and you need to know what your desired outcome is, right? Because if you are completely clueless on the topic that you're researching, and then you cannot just take the AI answer, call it a holy grail and run with it, because it doesn't know the right from wrong, the good from bad, the right information from wrong, because everything pulls from the internet. So the filtering, right, or guardrailing your own knowledge and expertise really helps you to really get the quality result. And asking the right question, I tell my kids to learn to be like intriguing or inquisitive, to ask questions, ask creative questions, go deeper, be curious. The curiosity will actually unlock the new potentials of AI for you if you're not willing to try, willing to give it a try.
100%. Yeah. That's a lot of the strategic buyers that we call them inquisitive, right? They're, looking to make these upstream, downstream acquisitions to, yeah, we just, when you said that, it got me thinking about how, you know, being inquisitive is such a good thing, especially in business. It opens up your mind to, different revenue opportunities and cross sell.
When we were talking about how do you embed AI technology and embrace AI technology in a corporate space, and I know in a startups, AI forward startups, we usually embrace more tech faster. We have less of the fear. We have to be in a survival mode, right? We have to deliver 10x result at a fraction of the cost because time is money. So, what tools do you use, and how do you embrace in a business world AI technology?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, I think the expertise of our team is the most important factor. And then we use AI as a complement, not a white knight. So, we lean heavily on the expertise and background and experience of our team. But then, AI is wonderful in the sense that it can accelerate things that that may be tedious or time consuming for us to, so we can focus more on revenue generation activities and things like that. But yeah, I would say using it as a complement to the knowledge that we can come together with as a team, and make those surgical inputs into the business to get those alpha returns. AI certainly plays a huge part in the analytical side of that, as far as like looking at the telemetry. I think it's just data, right? So how can we clean and process data and then get it into an environment that can have these algorithms that can run to make us more efficient, and to do some kind of predictive analytics. McKinsey did a real good article about this. I wish I could remember what it was called, but it's kind of like they say, is seeing around corners, right? So a lot of the things AI can be good at is having a really good memory, right? So it can store things and remember things. So that way, if we see a trend or something develop from, maybe 3 years ago, and we're starting to see that trend affect the business, in a positive way, we're seeing now that those AI can actually see that and then basically alert the operator to that condition that could potentially be hurting, margin, revenue, whatever it may be. So I think a lot of it, you still rely on the individual's background and experience and expertise, but I think you just use AI as a kind of like just something that will complement those skills, if that makes sense at all. But I'd be curious to see how you do it with y'all's business, because every organization's different. Some people have a high tolerance for AI. Some people are just, they don't want to use it at all.
It's interesting. You're absolutely right. So it's like when you think about the iPhone adapters, right? So when the first AI came out, some people embrace it right away and try to implement it in their lives, in businesses, in operating procedures. Others stay at bay and they kind of watch on the from the sideline. And a part of this, it's not necessarily because of the fear or lack of enthusiasm towards it. A lot of businesses operating in a highly regulated environments. They're concerned about the data protections. They are concerned about hallucinations. The consumers of AI products. So we're the standing on the other side of the fence, right? We integrate technologies, we build it, we ensure it is secured, and we deploy a solution. However, there's still an understanding gap, an understanding in terms of how the data is handled, where does it stored, who owns it, how we protect it from those hallucinations, how, and those are technical things that you and I have fortunate to have people on our teams to be able to solve those problems. So, as business owners, as the startup founders, I think it's our responsibility not just to bring the latest technology that makes people work more efficient, save them money, but also become an educators. Because the question comes up in terms of how do you handle hallucinations in your solution, right? Then there is a concept called railing. You write your in your back end of your software rules. The simple way of to explaining it, rules that actually limits and filters those external factors. You create your own proprietary models on your closed environments. You can mitigate multiple ways how to ensure the accuracy of your data calculation. And ultimately it's still ones and zeros. It's still mathematical equations. How you refine that, that's up to the subject matter expert. So building the relationship and trust and helping people to adapt to those changes, right? And adopt them safely and securely, that's an ultimate goal that we have to do it. From our perspective, we handle voice concept, right? We don't create voice, we orchestrate it safely and securely inside of enterprise platforms. So for us, for our customers, they come up with a question like who stores the data? Who handles the conversations? Where do they stay recorded? How the AI agents respond and how we teach them to respond in the most effective way. And that's where all of those technical expertise come into play because we had to solve that problems way before they asked that question, right? Because we're delivering the solution and we used AI to help us to do it faster, cheaper, more effective.
I think there's an opportunity for us to work together as far as a business relationship because in a Q of V, these accountants they pick up the phone and they call the clients and verify the things aren't double invoiced and the probability of them using their services in the future and things like that. I strongly believe that that can be maybe well I don't want to speak for your product out of turn, but from what I know so far, it sounds like that you can download the information that you're trying to extract out of the other person that the AI agent is speaking with, and then you're able to get that data. For instance, if we want to tell Agent Blue or whatever, hey, you need to call Rick's plumbing or something and find out if they're going to use Ferguson Supply to buy at least another 50,000 of material next year or something like that, right? So this is just an example, but if we could have one of your AI agents place that call and confirm that, there's a lot of value in that, and I think there's a lot of value in a lot of different things that need that type of. They need to have like a physical communication without having to tie up an actual person or resources to do that. And then you can just do it, you can scale that rapidly. And that's a big thing for, founders like us, to be able to scale these operations and get these crucial tasks done in a way, like you said before, that's quicker and lower cost. And that's kind of what Trade Gauge AI is all about, right? Between the valuations, the Q of E, and all that, we're taking it down to hours, and the cost is nominal compared to what you would have gotten if you go to like a big four firm or whatever you want to do to try and get that done. The cost is a fraction of what it would cost you, and the speed is out so much better. You have the same low cost and differentiation that I do, and I got to say that we can attribute AI to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We would not be able to achieve the drastic results in a speed and quality that we got it there without AI. Every single member of my team going through the AI vet check, right? They need to be able to use either you're an accountant or developer or a marketing person or sales rep. I want to make sure that my team is equipped with the best technology possible to deliver 10x results because being in a startup, being in a growing company, you simply cannot afford nowadays to pay for a one seat of the person because with the power of AI, we can 10x our outputs. And it's up to the person and individual to really leverage the technology that is available through the company and external resources and lifelong learning of the tools and technology that consistently come up that can amplify your output and bring your value to the company. And it's
Mhm.
now, I think it becomes a standard to deliver 10x results
Oh
from
yes.
because otherwise you can't compete. So,
No.
Jeff, I want to ask you, what would be a word of advice for companies that are on a conservative side of things, that are looking from the sides, they're curious about AI, but they're large enough to embrace it rapidly. They have some conscious, concerns. They don't have enough expertise, probably, so they're reserved in AI adoptions. What would you say to them?
I would say that they need to work with you and your team and some other consultant types similar to that, and have somebody take a really thoughtful approach to how AI can, to they can add alpha to their business model. I feel like that's not something that the founder should take on by themselves. They should contract somebody like yourself, or like I said, some other kind of consultant that's going to do a really thoughtful deep dive and do a lot of discovery and then map the critical processes and with all the different workflows that can benefit from AI. And then to make sure that, if there's any gaps in the org chart, maybe that can be filled by an AI agent. So I think that's a great question, but I think it requires a lot of diligence and background on the individual business. I don't think there's a universal one size fits all because it depends on, what kind of resources you have in your organization. Now, if you don't have a lot of resources and you're trying to bootstrap it, AI can do wonderful things for you. But if you've already got a wonderful business model and you're doing very well and you're growing, 10, 20, 30%, 40% year over year. There's just some things maybe you can do to just adjust it and make it better. Maybe use some of your agents to improve customer service. I'll tell you, a company, and I don't mind sharing the name of it, but that's CRM Go High Level. I got to tell you how impressed I am with their customer service. I'm not sure if you heard of that before, Go High Level.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. So I signed up for that, and I got to tell you that it's unbelievable. You log into it, and at any point in time, I mean, you can log in right away, and there's a demo. It's like hit demo, or get somebody share your screen or whatever. So at any point in time, when you're in the platform, you can just click that button, and bam, you got a live person that's sharing the screen. That's how can I help you, Jeff? What can we do here? And I just love that. And I think that you know and having AI do that moving forward in an environment like that to where they can actually screen share, see what you're doing, and answer those questions is the next level, of where things are going. I'm sure you're probably already there or working on it, but I think that part of having somebody basically hold your hand, and basically guide you through it because technology is great and I've been in SaaS. I've done, worked for startups, big billion-dollar companies like RealPage. You can sell the software platform to a business, but the adoption of it is totally different. So a lot of the times they're sold on the idea and the potential, but they don't actually use it to the full potential because they don't understand it. So that's why I think training is so important to keep your product sticky, and to know and to just not just forget about it, have ongoing training and things like that. And AI can play a big role in that, and that just makes people feel important, right? I mean, I'm a big proponent of making people feel important, especially clients. So I think having that kind of white glove service through AI and basically never like making them feel like they're not alone. They're not just sitting there going, "Crap, I can't figure this out," and searching around for a contact number. Some of these people you can't even call, right? I mean, they don't even have numbers, right?
AI is very powerful, but it's still a technology. And as long as you understand that it's not a replacement of human, it's there to amplify our productivity. It's to help us to achieve to our desired outcomes faster, better, and give us a competitive advantage edge. It is not there to replace. It can augment, change, and shift how we operate, even from contact centers, right? If you think about we engage conversational intelligence for contact centers, right? That means that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to replace the people on the seats. We're going to shift their priorities and focus. We're going to change their roles into something different. But it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be completely misplaced by AI. I'm a strong believer that AI will not replace humans. AI will, humans who use AI will replace those who don't. And that's the biggest differentiator
I couldn't agree more.
in a row that ensure that it's a pre-vetting process that speeds up
Right.
of the research analysis.
Yeah.
It may not have all the depth, right? Because you still need to look at the contracts documents. You still need to review the thorough review, but it gives you yay or nay
Yeah.
very fast, very quickly at a low entry point. And, does it confirms does the conversation need to happen further or
Right.
it's better to back off and save your precious dollars and time?
Yeah, so if you go in front of IC and you have something like this in front of you, that's gonna look awesome. And you can do it quick too. Right? You can get in there real quick and okay, and then you bring it to investment committee and yeah, it's wonderful. I'm glad that you see how I mean, I'm glad you share my same sentiments about the product because I think anybody in M&A that knows the struggle, the grind of what it's like, and to be able to have a product like this is it moves us forward in a big way.
I can relate to this because I took over several times post NA transactions. So I take this Q&A and look at the real things when the Pandora box is truly open. And when you look at this, you're like, holy moly, where is this in Q&A?
Yeah.
Why we haven't looked at the entire QuickBooks? Because to your point, Q&A in a standard concepts takes the exports of, of financial statements. Not all the time it has the full disclosure of all financials and all access to the entire data. So you work what you've been given, what's available at the time, and there are gaps. I mean, regardless, and I think you can relate to
Mhm.
this. Regardless how diligent the Q&A report was presented, how many hours and dollars were spent, it still has gaps. So
Yep.
uncovering the pain points afterwards, that's a fun place to be. That can you?
Yeah.
That's why I quit.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm have a great weekend. Thank you. And yeah, let's continue the conversation.
Sounds good.